If you have your Bibles, if you'll turn to 1 Kings chapter 3 with me. There's an amazing story in this passage of Scripture. One of my favorite stories in the Bible because it's just mind-blowing of how this occurs. You know, sometimes we all run into scenarios where we don't know what the right answer is. The longer I live, the more I run into these. The more our culture changes, the more you run into these. You run into these situations where you just don't know what the right answer is. Sometimes right and wrong seem like they could be interchangeable, all depending on the situation. But right and wrong are not interchangeable. You can't say, this is right today, and it will be wrong tomorrow, and it will be, no, truth doesn't change. Truth does not change. So you can't say right and wrong are interchangeable. There could be a humanitarian cause that somebody's going for. They're trying to do their best and lead the troops to accomplish a humanitarian cause, and it just seems to be morally wrong, but the intentions behind it are really good. So you say, okay, so do we get behind this or not? Because the intentions seem to be very good, but it seems to be like a moral issue. Should we go forward with this or not? Sometimes someone's desire might be unhealthy, but it is very, very important to that person that you try to understand and move forward anyway. Let them move forward in that decision anyway. And you look at it and go, yeah, see, that's not a healthy move. But I do love you, and I want to support you, and I want to be there for you. So is it right or wrong to help them move forward in an unhealthy decision in life? Because it seems like maybe if I just show them love and move forward with this decision, then that's right to show them love, but the decision might be wrong. So what do you do when you don't know what to do? When the situation could be the right answer this way or the right answer that way. You just don't know what to do with it. Your heart goes out to those people, but you are conflicted on the inside of what do I do? Even though I love them, what do I do? In these situations, how do you know what the right call is? That's what I want to talk about this morning. What do you do when it seems like right and wrong could be interchangeable, where you say, okay, there's enough here to say it would be good for me to do this, but there's enough here to say I shouldn't. But to show them love or to do something here, I want to do what's right, even though the issue might seem wrong. What do you do? What do you do? At the end of the book of 2 Samuel, King David has died, and he has turned the kingdom over to his son Solomon. And Solomon's a little bit uneasy about being the king over Israel. A lot of responsibility comes with that job. I don't know if you've ever been a king, but if you have, you know there's a lot of responsibility that comes with the job of being king over a nation. David did a great job of leading the nation, but now everyone's looking at his son Solomon, and Solomon is very young. David is off the scene, and everybody's eyes turn to this kid, to Solomon, and he's feeling a little bit overwhelmed in the situation. God sees Solomon's trepidation. He looks at him and he goes, okay, I see that you're uneasy here. And so God decides to encourage Solomon a little bit. Look at 1 Kings chapter 3 and verse 5. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask, what shall I give you? God just offered Solomon anything he wanted. Just ask. What do you want me to give you, Solomon? Just ask. At the same time, he's revealing Solomon's heart here. God makes him an offer, it says, while he's sleeping. It's in a dream. So Solomon is talking to God in a dream here. Solomon isn't going to consciously think about it for a while and get back to God. He's going to ask for the thing that he desires most. It's what's on his heart. He's not consciously thinking of what he wants to do. It's just it's on his mind right now. He tells God what he desires most. And it's most likely the same thing that he goes to bed with every night, because it's important to him. It's on his mind as he falls asleep. He's got a big job to do, and he feels less than adequate to do it. It's overwhelming to him. So here's Solomon's response in verse 6. It says, and Solomon said, you have shown great mercy to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in truth, in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with you. You have continued this great kindness for him, and you have given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. Solomon first acknowledges the goodness of God. If you look at the verses there, he's acknowledging the goodness of God immediately. God was with his father David every step of the way, and Solomon, what do you want? First of all, I want to tell you you have shown great mercy to my dad. You were really good to my dad, and you've continued to show him kindness, and you've given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. You're amazing, God. That's how Solomon leads. What do you want? I want to tell you how amazing you are. That's the first thing. I want to acknowledge who you are. God showed David mercy and kindness. God was good to David, and Solomon took notice. I noticed how good you were to Dad, and I just want to say thank you. You were good to my dad. Now that God has offered him anything he wants, Solomon decides to cash in on the goodness of God, which is a really smart move, by the way. Like, anything you want, Solomon? Well, let me tell you about your goodness. I want to talk about the goodness of God here. He knows the character of God, and he knows that he needs God's help if he's going to be a good king. That's what I need. The good that you were to Dad, I'm going to need that. God, I'm going to need that right there. Your kindness and your mercy. I need that in my life. Solomon had the same problem that every other person on this planet that has ever existed has. Without God, our understanding is skewed. We need God. Remember, we're the creation, he's the creator. The creator usually knows a little bit more about the creation than the creation itself. So it would be smart if we would say, okay, as the creation, I really need the creator. It makes sense. You would say that if you created a machine, you wouldn't say, okay, you're on your own. Just do your thing. You know, I tried that with my lawnmower once. I put it out there and it wouldn't start, and then I asked it to start. Would you just start? It didn't do it. It did not do it. The creation needs the creator. It's always this way. The creation needs the creator. Without God, our understanding is skewed. We need to open our minds to that idea, because a lot of times we feel like our understanding, we got it locked in. Yeah, I know. God says, and we say, yeah, but. It would be smart for us all to understand that without God, our understanding is skewed. We need God. It would benefit every one of us to recognize this fact. So I don't know how you're feeling about your own understanding today, but it would be wise to say, okay, that's a true statement. We need the Creator. So Solomon asked God for the very thing he was missing. Look at verse 7 of 1 Kings chapter 3. Now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king instead of my father David, but I am a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in, and your servant is in the midst of your people whom you have chosen, a great people too numerous to be numbered or counted. Therefore, give to your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil, for who is able to judge this great people of yours? This is an extremely impressive prayer. God offers Solomon the world on a silver platter. He's just like, what do you want? What do you want, Solomon? Just tell me what you want. And Solomon asked for wisdom to discern right and wrong. I need the ability to discern good from evil. That's what I need. Now here's a good question. Solomon's an adult. He's a young adult, but he's an adult. Don't you think he would have already known the difference between right and wrong? How you doing on that? You got it? This is bad, this is good. Okay. Don't you think Solomon would have already known the difference between right and wrong? Obviously, he has the desire to do what's right, or else he wouldn't be asking for wisdom. He's asking God, I want to do what's good, so I need wisdom to do what's good. If he sees something evil, don't you think he'd be able to recognize, hey, that's evil. People are killing people, that's evil. We would be able to recognize that. If he saw something good, shouldn't he be able to pick up on the fact that that's a good thing? Doesn't he already know the difference between good and evil? I mean, he's an adult here. It almost seems like a wasted request. But God loves his request. I want the wisdom to know the difference between good and evil. Now, with a basic understanding, we'd be like, don't you already know? I mean, don't we already know? This is good, this is not. Don't we know? Why would you ask for that? Why did Solomon ask for this? And God absolutely loves this request. Look at verse 10. It says, the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. Then God said to him, because you have asked this thing, and have not asked long life for yourself, nor have asked riches for yourself, nor have asked the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern justice, behold, I have done according to your words. See, I have given you a wise and understanding heart, so that there has not been anyone like you before you, nor shall any like you arise after you. And I have also given you what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be anyone like you among all the kings all your days. God loved the fact that Solomon understood his need. You recognize your need. He loved the fact that Solomon forfeited everything else in order that he would receive wisdom. Wisdom to do what? Discern good from evil. So God gave him the things he didn't ask for as well. I'm so proud of you. You could have asked for riches, you could have asked for peace, you could have asked for anything you wanted, but you went for wisdom. So here's riches and peace too. Go ahead, here, you can have it all, because I'm so proud of your request. I think it's important for us to dig a little deeper into the story to find out what Solomon's really asking for, though. Because you know good from evil. I know good from evil. Solomon says, I need the wisdom to know good from evil. So what are you asking for? And why was God so pleased with this request? As we've already established, it couldn't have been the basic understanding of right and wrong. Most, if not everyone, already has this. Right and wrong. We got it. Little kids know that. Because as they have chocolate all over their face and you walk into the room, they know. They know right from wrong. Solomon's like, man, I just wish I was as smart as that kid. No, that's not what he's asking for. Because we all know the difference between right and wrong. We all have that discernment between good and evil to a certain extent. So Solomon's got to be asking for something a little bit deeper than just the difference between good and evil. There's got to be something more here. We know Solomon was already very wise because of his request. Man, you're smart. You're going for wisdom here. But what was it that he was asking for specifically? And here's what he's asking for. Solomon wanted to go to a place that existed beyond the rules. I want to go to a place that is out there beyond the rules. Because if it doesn't say, do not do this or do this, if it says don't do this, then I know it's wrong. If it says do this, I know it's right. But what if there's no do not or do? What do I do in that situation, God? What do I do when the situation comes up and I could go either way on this? I need wisdom. I need understanding to discern good and from evil. I want this going for me here. What happens when the Bible doesn't address a specific issue, but both sides cannot be right? What happens when it's not in the Word of God? Do you smoke? Do you not smoke? Well, let's look up the smoking verses and let's figure this out. Well, smoking's not in there. What do you do? And many of you have verses to say, well, that's bad. Actually, you don't even need a verse to say smoking's bad. Go to the doctor. The doctor, even if he's not religious, he'll say, oh, by the way, that's bad. Okay, so there's some things that are really basic, really simple. And whether you smoke or not, I'm not condemning anybody for smoking or not smoking. That's not the point here. It's just we're able to discern good from bad there. So Solomon's even digging deeper than this. What happens when decisions seem to fall into that gray area? What do you do when it could go either way? It could go either way. This is what Solomon desires to know. And God gives him exactly what he asked for. You want to know that? Let me give you wisdom and understanding to discern that. Solomon is now the king of Israel, and he knows he's going to have to make some tough calls. So when those tough calls come, God, I would really like some wisdom to be able to discern good from evil. When there's no do or do not list. What do I do there? And then one day it happens. The impossible scenario walks through his door. Same chapter. Let's just go a little farther. The impossible scenario walks in. Look at verse 16. Now 2 women who were harlots came to the king and stood before him. The one woman said, "O my lord, this woman and I dwell in the same house, and I gave birth while she was in the house. Then it happened the 3rd day after I had given birth, that this woman also gave birth, and we were together. No one was with us in the house except the 2 of us in the house." Here's the first piece of the impossible scenario. These 2 women live in the same house. They are alone. There are no witnesses. So just to make the situation complicated to start with, we have a problem and there are no witnesses. Witnesses are a really good way to help solve a dispute. That would really help. But Solomon, you don't get that. That option just flew out the window. There are no witnesses. It's just 2 women, my word against her word. This is all we got. No witnesses here. So we're already getting in a difficult situation here. Now Solomon has to listen to the problem and present a solution in a she said situation. Like, okay, that's great. Here you go, Solomon. Here's your first trial. Welcome. It's good to be king. Yeah, this is great. No witnesses. That's how we're going to start the whole thing. There are no witnesses. Now to present the problem. This is where things get tricky, and this is where that wisdom thing comes in handy. The women begin to plead their case to Solomon. Look at verse 19. "And this woman's son died in the night because she lay on him. So she arose in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while your maidservant slept, and laid him in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. And when I arose in the morning to nurse my son, there he was, dead. But when I had examined him in the morning, indeed, he was not my son whom I had born." Do what? What happened? The woman accidentally kills her son. No wrong's been done. It was an accident. She rolled over on her child, and she ended up losing her child. There's no sin here. Nothing's been done wrong as far as the loss of this child. Then she kidnaps the other woman's child. They're in the same house. She takes her child over to this bed and puts the dead child in this bed and takes the live child, and she keeps that one. How does she think she's going to get away with this? What makes her think this is going to work out? Oh, that's right. There's no witnesses and there's no DNA tests of any kind. It's a she said situation. This is a good strategy. Oh, that's my kid. Who's gonna say it's not my kid? What are you gonna do? But so far, this is an easy case. It's not hard at all. Just tell the woman to give the child back. That's all you got to do. Hey, give the kid back. That's when the other woman speaks up. Look at verse 22. Then the other woman said, "No, but the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son." And the first woman said, "No, but the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son." Thus they spoke before the king. Here you go, Solomon. Here you go. Good luck. Good luck, Solomon. This is your problem. Make sure the baby goes to the right mother. That's all you got to do now. No witnesses, no DNA test. It's a she said situation. Make sure the baby goes to the right mom. What are you going to do now? There's not even a father to ask in this situation. Remember, both of these women are into prostitution. These kids could have the same father. These kids could even look close to this. They could have the same appearance. They could have the same father, different mothers. We don't know what's going on in this situation. We just know that Solomon gets to figure it out. It's good that it's his problem, not ours. No witnesses, no DNA test. They both say it's their kid. Make sure it gets to the right mom, would you? Just go ahead and make sure that happens. Welcome to the new position. You got promoted. Welcome to the kingship. This is going to be a good day. I'm sure Solomon was praying silently as these women were talking. Like, oh no. Okay, there's no witnesses, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Then the answer finally hits him. Look at verse 24. Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword before the king, and the king said, "Divide the living child in two, and give half to one and half to the other." Well, that's perfect. That's perfect. We lost David, and we get this guy. Like, cut the baby in half and give half to each mom. Like, oh my goodness. This is not, what did we do? Who's our king now? I'm sure the soldiers were a little bit shocked when Solomon says, "Hey, I got an idea. Bring a sword and cut the baby in half." It's genius. Just cut the baby in half and give them both half. This isn't a cake. You can't divide things evenly, Solomon. This is a human life we're talking about here. Solomon wasn't just making a power-hungry decision. That's not what he's doing here. He's like, I'm king, I can do whatever I want. That's not what he's doing. He's not just throwing out a power-hungry decision. He's watching everything closely in this situation. He's not focused on the baby. He's not focused on the sword that's coming into the room. He's looking a lot deeper at everything that's happening in this situation. He's studying the character of the two women. That's what he's doing. The baby's fine. I'm not going to let that happen. The soldiers are a little shaken, but that's okay. We'll get over that later. The sword's coming into the room. I want to see what the moms are going to do. I'm looking at the character of the women. That's what he's focused on here. And that's when he sees it. That's when he notices how to make his decision. Look at verse 26. Then the woman whose son was living spoke to the king, for she yearned with compassion for her son. And she said, "O my lord, give her the living child, and by no means kill him." But the other said, "Let him neither be mine nor yours, but divide him." So the king answered and said, "Give the first woman the living child, and by no means kill him. She is his mother." Solomon had no idea who the real mother was going in. There's no witnesses, there's no DNA test, there's nothing you can do here, Solomon. She said, that's all you got. He doesn't know who the true mother is. He just knew that one of these women should be mourning over the fact that she just lost her baby, and neither one of them are. Somebody is lacking compassion in this situation, and I'm not sure which one it is, but the natural thing that should be happening here, one of you should be mourning, and neither one of you are mourning. You're fighting over the living child. When he ordered that the sword be brought in, the character of the two women was revealed. It was revealed. One showed a loving maternal instinct, and the other one proved herself to be the thief immediately. Solomon chose to make the same move he made when it came to God. And I want you to notice this. I want you to see this. Do you remember how he spoke to God? "You show tender mercy to my dad. You have shown loving kindness to my father. You have been good to my dad. I'm looking to your character for justice and righteousness." I'm studying your character, God, because that is what I want to lead like. I want your character coming through me, because then I will judge righteously, because you are righteous. The truth about right and wrong are found in the person who establishes the morals. Look at Psalms chapter 11 and verse 7. It says, "For the Lord is righteous. He loves righteousness. His countenance beholds the upright." Solomon understood that God could do no wrong. It goes against his very nature. God cannot do wrong. He is righteous. He's not being righteous. He is righteous. That is his character. That's who he is. It's his nature. So if Solomon was going to learn righteousness, it only makes sense that he would go to the person who already had a complete understanding of righteousness. I'm going to study your character, God, because I want to know how to rule righteously. There are areas in life that are clearly gray areas. It happens. Look at our culture right now. Your truth might not be my truth, but they're both truth. What's good for you might not be good for me. What's right for you might not be right for me, but hey, everything's right, everything's true. It can't be. It can't be. There are clearly some gray areas in life, and there's no verse on it. What do you do when you can't just go to the Bible and say, okay, this issue, I can't find a verse on it? What do you do then? Should your midweek service be on Wednesday or Thursday? Should you have a midweek service at all? What do we do? What's right? What's wrong? Well, that's determined by opinion. That issue is determined by opinion. But there are a lot of issues today that are said to be up for debate that are not up for debate. They're just not up for debate. These are the kind of issues where wisdom comes in handy. Sometimes the Bible doesn't speak directly about a topic that we're experiencing in our culture today, but the character of God does speak about it. The Bible, there might not be a verse on it where we say, oh, that's what I should do with this situation. The Bible might not say anything about it, but the character of God says everything about it. We need to study the character of God. If you want to know what to do in the gray area, go to the one who established the morals. Understand the character of our God. Look at what David prayed while he was still king. Look at Psalms 25 and verse 4. It says, show me your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me. For you are the God of my salvation. On you I will wait all the day. There are going to be many people who cross our paths with their own version of truth. It's going to happen. It's happening already. This is my version of truth, and I'm right just because, well, this is what I feel is right. They have their own version of truth. The question is, who's your final authority? Who's your final authority? Who established that truth? And by the way, this will help everybody. When you talk with people who say this is the truth, here's the first question. Who is your final authority? Who determines the truth? Who determines what's true and what's not? Who has the final word on what truth is in your life? We are not the ones who created morals. Those are based on God's own character. He is good. So what he says is good, and what he says is bad, because he is good. He does know the difference between good and evil, and he told us what it is. When you're trying to decide what is truth and what is not, you must go to the authority on the matter. Because I promise you, he knows. He knows. Look at Isaiah 55 and verse 8. It says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. People often get mad at God because of the choices he makes, as if it's just a difference of opinion. Well, you say it's right, but I don't agree. It's not just a difference of opinion. If God says this is truth, this is truth. Have you ever had those conversations with your kids? I want cookies for dinner. You're not having cookies for dinner. It's not good for you. Well, I think it is. Okay, that's not a difference of opinion either. You're right. It's not good for them. We shouldn't do this. The truth doesn't change even though we disagree with each other on it. But when we talk to God and we get upset with him because we don't like what he says, it's not a difference of opinion when it comes to God. What he says is true is true. It's what he says is good for you is good for you, and if he says it's bad for you, it truly is bad for you. It's not because he disagrees with you, it's because it's right for you. He's telling you the truth. God is not able to do wrong. He really is righteous. He will do right. If he declares something to be true, then it's true whether we agree with it or not. Our opinion doesn't change the truth. But remember, it's also saturated in love because God is love. Now, I don't like your answer. It's a loving answer. It's the truth. Please listen because I love you. Both David and Solomon had a desire to do what was right. They both understood that this was the impact that they wanted to make. They wanted to be that king. And this is how they wanted to lead. Solomon asked for wisdom above everything else because he knew that God is what the people needed most and God is what he needed most. Because without God, our understanding is skewed. And he realized that. What we need to understand is that we all have a dependency on God. If you feel like you're doing good on your own, it's going to get rough. It's going to get rough. We depend on God. We need him. Have you ever noticed that we can't defeat death? Anybody ever realize that? We can't defeat death? Well, God can. Did you ever notice that we can't create life? God can do that too. God can do that too. God has not only created each and every one of us, he's also offered us a relationship. And his ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts, and he knows what's right for us. Yield. Just yield to him. We do need him, and he's good. He's not going to lead you down the wrong path. He's good. Solomon figured out that the best way to know someone was to learn about their character. That's how he figured out which woman was the true mother, because he looked at the character. And that's how he figured out how to rule righteously, because he looked at the author of righteousness and studied his character. He studied the character of the person who was the authority on the matter. And by the way, that's a good move. That's a good move. If you want to know the difference between right and wrong, study the character of the one who established it. Look at the one who is righteous. Study his character, and then in those gray areas in life, you're like, okay, that doesn't match the character of God. And suddenly you have your answer in a gray area, because you're studying the character. When it comes to those non-gray areas in life, stand for truth. And if you don't know what truth is, study the character of God. Study the character of God. People may tell you that your truth is different from their truth, but neither one of you are the authority on the matter. Neither one of you are the final authority. So at some point, somebody's going to have to yield. Who's your final authority? God is the final authority. Always study the character of God to know how to answer these things. David wrote a psalm to God that he finally wrapped his mind around this topic. Look at Psalms 119 and verse 60. The entirety of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous judgments endures forever. God is never going to lead you in the wrong direction. If he said it, it's true. And when he said it, he did it in love for you. It's saturated in love. What we need to do is humble ourselves and realize that we depend on him. We do need him. And that's a good place, by the way. When you realize that you need God, boy, does that take a lot of pressure off your shoulders. Like, man, I don't have to rule the universe today. I can just talk to the one who does. I can yield. I don't have to know all the answers. I can just go to the one who has all the answers. I don't have to know which call to make here. I just have to look at the character of the one who knows what's right and what's wrong. I just have to study the authority on the matter. That's all I have to do. That takes a lot of pressure off of you not to be in control all the time. So if you're one of those people that I have to be in control, let it go. Try it out. It's really fun. It's really relaxing to rely on God instead of yourself. Both David and Solomon had a desire to do right. And they both understood if you're going to know what's right and what's wrong, you're going to have to go to the final authority on what's right and what's wrong. We need to ask God to give us wisdom to discern what is good and what is not, and not just the do's and don'ts list. Because what happens when it's not on that list? What do? God, give us wisdom. Give us wisdom to govern the gray areas too. And I promise you, he wants you to have wisdom. He just first wants you to desire it. It's yours. You want it, I'll give it to you. But I want you to want it. I want you to want it. Look at James chapter 1 and verse 5. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. How do you start the process? How do you begin to get that wisdom? Well, look at this next verse. Proverbs chapter 9 and verse 10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So let's break this one down just a little bit here. The fear of the Lord is acknowledging that we need him. That's where we're at. We need him. It's being in awe that he is greater than ourselves. You are the authority. I respect you as the authority. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. When you realize he's got all the answers and that you depend on him, that's the beginning of wisdom. humbling yourself, the fear of the Lord. That's the beginning of wisdom. The knowledge of the Holy One is what comes from studying his character. God is the final authority on truth. And that's just the bottom line. He is the final authority on truth. If you want to have an understanding about what is right, go to the authority on righteousness. Because once you learn more about him, you're able to govern the things that happen in life so much easier. And it's not because you're smart all of a sudden. It's because you're looking at him and saying, okay, I'm just going to do it the way you would do it. I'm just going to follow righteousness. Solomon, for years, to me, the situation with Solomon and these children, cutting the baby in half, I'm like, I know the story. Like, yeah, that was a good call. I mean, it looks smart to me. What did he have to figure out? That was the right move. Imagine he didn't read the chapter and find out what to do. It was all live. It's time to go now. He didn't let me look at 1 Kings chapter 3 and find out what to do here. He didn't get that. This was his story. It was happening in real time. What am I going to do? I know what to do. One of you are the true mother. You're the authority. I know what to do. I'm going to study the character of the authority on the matter. I'm going to let them tell me which one's the real mother, because the maternal character will come out if I offer to cut the baby in half. I'm going to study the character on the authority. But that's the same way he was working with God. If I want to know good from evil, if I want to know what to do in those gray areas, I just have to look at my decision and say, does it match his character or not? Does it match his character? And then I have my answer. There's so much that comes with wisdom. To discern good from evil, that's just not talking about good versus bad or do's versus don'ts. Sometimes the problem goes a lot deeper, and we need God. We need God. So trust him. Trust him. Seek wisdom. Ask God for wisdom. We would be so much better off if we would just finally understand we need you. We really, really need you. Give us wisdom.